13th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order.
Microphone's on.
Mine is. Roll call.
Roger Froman.
Catherine Nyberger.
Charles Smallwood.
Sylvia Henry.
David Paradise.
Jessica Bonnywell.
Bob Kermis, planner.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For approval of the agenda. Is there anything to add, Jess, or is this okay? Sure.
Are you looking for an approval? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 5A, approval of the minutes from the May 18th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th as written.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval of the minutes from the June 8th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I make a motion to approve the June 8th minutes.
You weren't there.
Yeah, I wasn't there last month.
Oh, last month.
That was last month, yep.
I know what, I don't miss much.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Need a motion to close the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and open the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the meeting, the planning and zoning meeting, and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we close the Planning and Zoning meeting at 7:03 and open the public hearing. And I'll turn it over to staff for.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman and Planning Commission members. This item, as you're aware, relates to the city's fence regulations. Tonight is a follow-up to previous discussions which took place at the May and June meetings, at which a variety of issues were discussed related to boundary line fences and fences which exist on corner lots within the city. This was brought about basically because of two concerns which were raised by staff. The first was in regard to boundary line fences. The existing fence regulations stipulate that a property owner has to get agreement from a neighbor in order to construct a boundary line fence. Therefore, there's a potential to have inconsistent property rights throughout the city depending upon the kind of the mood of your neighbor, I suppose. So the idea was, or what was suggested by staff, was to eliminate that requirement that the neighbor agree to the boundary line fence and rather allow a boundary line fence to exist, provided it is constructed of no or low maintenance materials, subject to a fence permit, and also as part of that fence permit that a surveyor mark property lines to ensure proper location of the boundary line fence. So the idea is basically to eliminate that sort of subjective provision of the ordinance and apply the fence requirements uniformly and consistently in the city. The second concern related to side yard fencing on corner lots. Currently, the city's ordinance states that side yards and corner lots are treated as front yards, and as a result, a maximum height of 4 feet or 48 inches is allowed, which does not necessarily provide a property owner the ability to have a private area within a rear yard. Staff has recommended that the fence provisions be amended to allow fences up to 6 feet in height, provided a 10-foot setback is provided from the right-of-way line. There's some additional standards that have been recommended also, and I'll just highlight those. They're in your report. But in addition, there would be a requirement that the fence must be located behind the rear building line of the principal structure. And also a provision that states that the fence may be constructed of a solid wall or screening material, provided that the traffic visibility requirements of the ordinance continue to apply, because I know that was a concern cited by the Planning Commission. So staff is suggesting approval of the draft amendment, or recommending to the council approval of the draft amendment as written. Mentioned there's a highlighted version within your memo. There's also a more formal version of the amendment on page 17 of your packet, which would be introduced to the council for final approval. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them best I can. I know you've seen this a couple times already.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, I don't know.
Sorry.
It's just the information that was in the report from the planner in your packet. He was just going over the information that's in the report.
Pages 12 through 14.
I have a question, Chuck. Maybe you know the answer to this while you're reading. Does every property in Montrose have posts at four corners?
They should have four corners and along the edges too for the setbacks from the building.
Okay.
They should.
You're talking about the property markers?
Yeah, the pins.
They
Some are there.
should. Not
there,
all of
some
them
aren't.
exist. Yeah, some of them have been dug up over the years or removed illegally by people. And that's kind of why we're wanting to require a survey be done.
Right, that's what I was asking
Yep.
is, because I've identified my four corners, right?
Yep.
And so I would be kind of, why would I need to get a survey person? I
Yeah,
could
if
see
you
them.
can identify and find those, I think that would be sufficient. But some people can't find those.
Right,
So you really don't have to have,
If they want to put it on the boundary line, I believe we are going to require that survey. If you want to go 2 feet off and just find your own property markers, I think that they would just allow that. Is that correct?
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the objective is just to make sure you don't encroach upon your neighbor's
Right.
property.
Correct.
make what?
To make sure we don't encroach on the neighbor's property, it would just be something to ensure that you're not encroaching on the neighbor's property. So if you want to put a fence right on the property line, you need to have a survey.
Documentation that it's going to be located appropriately.
Well, I've had my property surveyed 3 times. And the survey stakes have been pulled out overnight every time. So it's kind of a difficult, you can't be assured, you have to know, and they can do that, they can legally do that. You just have to make sure where the iron stakes are. So,
Yeah,
but I'm
well,
sure this isn't true in all neighborhoods.
along with a survey, we're also going to have Metro West do the fence inspections.
Pardon?
We are also going to have Metro West, our inspectors, do the fence inspections from now on.
Okay.
It's probably a good idea. The city guys are a little bit overwhelmed the
Yeah,
last couple of years, even before
and-
the construction started.
Yeah, when our new public works director took over, he didn't realize that city staff was the one kind of approving those fences and the placement of them, and doesn't think that that should be a staff job, that we're identifying property lines and things. So we want to move away from that.
Okay. Okay. Doesn't look like we have much for, do you have anything to add, Roy?
I'd say the ordinance, the way the ordinance that we got, what we got now, I think the ordinance should stay the same. From when I was chair of planning and zoning and when I was mayor, going out to people with these fences arguing and fighting all the time. And some of it got kind of ridiculous until I took the book and showed them what the ordinance was. And I had people thank me today yet that I showed them what was what, where you can cut your grass on the other side and you ain't got the neighbor's slump pump running into the kids' toy box on the other side of the fence. You know, the ordinance that we had, I can't see why anything should be changed.
Well, I don't agree with the 2-foot setback at all. You know, whether it's maintenance-free or maintenance required. I mean, you're basically giving 2 feet of your property to your neighbor. And,
Well, isn't that their choice?
pardon?
It would be their choice to set it back a bit.
I know, but that neighbor could claim adverse possession of your property of those 2 feet. It happens all the time. But that's just my opinion. I mean, you do what you think's.
Well, and part of the ordinance that really does need to be changed is that neighbors can sign off on a property line boundary fence, because,
Well, that's important too.
yeah, well, it shouldn't be allowed, it's not really legal, so.
I mean, that basically is,
Because you take like over there in Pheasant Hills over there, when they built all the houses back in that area back there, none of them houses were put on the right piece of property. That was the way that house was set up. Everyone's 3 feet over around that whole corner back in there and everything. That nobody paid any attention to what was going on when the houses were being built, because there was supposed to be an easement for that water pond and that back there too, and they don't show it on a map, but I know there was an easement to go back there to check that pond. And that, but everything is switched around, because I know a couple of people that had houses that back there, they had to go 3 feet over from the property line. That's the way it was designed on the blueprint. Nobody followed up on nothing. It was a mess back there, I'll tell you that.
what does the
water
certified survey show?
sewer line over there, lines were busted and stuff like that. And whoever put the water lines in and stuff like that, when I went down there, the contractor said, "Who did this mess?" I said, "I don't know," but I said it wasn't watched by our engineer or whatever it was when that was put in. I says, "Well, do it right and fix it." And they fixed it, and they ain't had no problems since.
Yeah, by locating the iron monuments or doing a survey, regardless if it's 2 feet off, the survey or the pins, they can't take the 2 feet.
Right, no, it's,
Well, if they can, if they are determined enough to, if they can state that they have used that property consistently, and if they can prove that they use it, say you own the property next door, and I put a fence up, and I set back 2 feet, and we don't get along. I mean, this is just,
Yeah,
okay, and so I'm not about to go on the other side of the fence with the dogs loose and harassment and whatever, so I'm not using that 2 feet. Then you're using that 2 feet. There's not enough room for me to get my mower in there. So they're mowing it. And so therefore they have determined that they own that property through adverse possession, through constant use. I mean, that's a possibility.
it's a possibility, but I don't see that standing up if you try to push it too far.
Well, all of the inner suburbs, Eden Prairie, Chanhassen, Edina, all of their fence ordinances, maintenance-free or maintenance, are on the property line. Now, I have called their planning and zoning departments to try and see how they handle maintenance. but nobody gets back to me. It's all online. But I would think that it's just reasonable that if somebody wants to come onto your property, NSP comes on, the gas company, everybody comes onto your property for maintenance. So I would think, if you don't get along with your neighbor, hire a third party to do the maintenance. But those are my views. I just would not want to give up my 2 feet of property. And I don't think many people would.
No, I don't think that's, Jess, is that even possible? I mean,
To allow a maintenance fence on the property line?
no, that somebody mowing the 2 feet can take over the land.
No, I mean, not legally, no.
Okay, I didn't think so.
But, I mean, because the ordinance is proposed to say that a fence that requires periodic maintenance shall be located no closer than 2 feet from any side or rear yard on the property line of the person constructing that fence. An exception to this may be allowed by an administrative fence permit, and that's when you would have to get that survey done.
I know. Yeah, I understand all of that, but you're allowing maintenance-free fences to be on the property line.
Correct.
So that 2 feet, that's your property. But you're not allowing a non-maintenance-free fence to be on the property line.
Correct.
Right, because then irregardless, you can maintain that side of your fence, be it repair, staining, or whatever, without trespassing.
Now, where is that ordinance, or where is that legal verbiage?
If you don't get along with your neighbor already, and he's trying to take 2 feet, so you put it on the line, well, now you can't get over there to do anything with your fence, because he's not going to let you on the
That's what I've had for
property.
18 years. I've had a fence on the property line, and no one's taken care of it at all. I mow it, but it's my property. But a maintenance or a cedar fence is on the property line and has been for 18 years.
But you should be able to tend to that side, the side of the fence that is against your property.
Well, yeah, I do. I do take care of it. But I just don't see that there's a problem. If he wanted to come over and fix his fence, well, fix it. I just don't see that any reasonable person would object to having somebody come on their property to fix a fence on the property line.
And that isn't always the case. That's
Right. Because we had an instance of that last year.
well,
Well,
but
With the Emerys.
those are just my views. So,
yeah,
I think that the fences should be on the property line, whether maintenance-free or maintenance required.
so we can close the public hearing, seeing that public really isn't here.
Yeah, nobody from the public is here, so,
You want it closed?
Yeah, we can continue discussion amongst ourselves, but we can close the public hearing. There's no sense having it open.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Was I on public hearing? That wasn't my intent.
Well, it's all part of the same.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I close the public hearing at 7:20 and reopen the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Okay. Any further comments, concerns, questions?
Well, I have a question regarding fences going into public areas, and I don't mean the front yards, but what if there are wetlands behind? People put fences in those areas. Is a wetland public land?
there's a drainage easement over wetlands typically, and typically the structures are not allowed within a drainage easement for a wetland. There's buffer requirements and
But
so
there
forth.
are fences in
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yep.
our wetlands.
No. And they don't last long.
Pardon?
And they don't last long, especially if they're wood.
No, but the metal ones are pretty sturdy.
Well,
So, but that's not actually, it's a drainage easement. It's not
Yeah,
property.
yeah, it's a drainage.
All the wetlands behind my house where ditch 34 is, that's acreage. That's considered drainage, all that acreage?
I don't know. I'd have to look at your specific area.
Okay, well, I was just inquiring about that.
Yeah.
anyone else?
Well, what about the 7-foot fence?
I know we did talk about that last time. Allowing 7 feet, up to 7 feet.
I think the fence should remain at 6 feet.
The reason why we spoke about a 7-foot fence was bordering commercial property. And that's pretty consistent with other communities, that you have a taller fence against, if your
Commercial
backyard
property?
is a commercial property, then you'd want to have a taller fence than 6.
We also talked about it going up to 7 feet because the state has recently changed their building code requirements, and they now allow a 7-foot fence without a official building permit, and it can still just be an administrative permit.
Right.
But it's just on the back, the rear yard? It's not on side yards? It's just on the rear or property bordering commercial?
No, I believe that would be for anybody who wanted a 7-foot fence.
So they could have a 7-foot fence on their side yard?
Correct. Well, as long as they weren't obstructing views and they complied with everything else in the ordinance, yes.
Okay, now we have a 6-foot height limit now. And we've had people remove chicken wire extensions that go up to 7 feet. Now, 7 feet is 7 feet. How are you going to deal with the people that have 6-foot fences now and they put extensions on them? And they said, well, your ordinance says I can have a 7-foot fence. We discussed this. But I've seen nothing in the documentation to address it.
So,
Yeah, well, if the ordinance says the maximum height is 6 feet, that's what it is. If the ordinance says it's 7 feet, that's what it is. If the ordinance says it's 6 feet, somebody erects a fence 7 feet, it doesn't comply with the ordinance. Somebody could complain. The city could initiate code enforcement and say, you're not allowed a fence greater than 6 feet, because that's what the ordinance requires.
But
Yeah,
if
and
you
I think
change it to 7 feet,
she's worried that people are gonna put, add some material for a
they
foot.
can add chicken wire fence or whatever to
On
a
that top
6-foot fence
foot.
to
But it's up to the city to decide if you want
Well, that's
7 foot,
important.
7 foot high fences.
Right.
I mean, we've had, that's the only reason we've been able to have chicken wire extensions removed is because it's in addition to the 6-foot. They're ugly, believe me. It's not aesthetically pleasing at all. So that would be my concern about a 7-foot fence, is that all of the 6-foot fences now could put chicken wire or whatever to extend them.
We can always leave it at 6 feet. The proposed draft is at 6 feet.
Pardon?
The proposed draft is at 6 feet. We can leave it at 6 feet. It's just up to you guys to make a recommendation and then council to make that decision, whether they want
I would
that.
definitely be against 7 feet, so. Except on a commercial. But
yeah, that's page 15.
Commercial fencing is different. We're just talking about residential, so.
for,
Yeah, that's
Business and
business and industrial,
yep, that's where it goes to
but
8
I'm
feet.
talking about residential.
And I see,
So, I wouldn't want to see 7 feet or a 7-foot fence allowed in side yards in residential areas. Unless you had some sort of a clause in there where,
administrator,
Chair, just add in regard to where residential uses abut commercial uses, typically commercial uses are required to put some sort of a buffer. So they have a responsibility of buffering their more intense activity from the abutting residential uses, and oftentimes it's, screening, trees, fences, that's a responsibility of the higher intensity use.
okay, but we're not addressing that issue tonight.
No, but in an instance where residential use happens to abut a commercial use, which was
Should be
brought
screened.
up, there is a screening requirement of the higher intensity use, just to recognize that.
and nowhere in the proposed ordinance does it refer to residential and 7 feet.
Catherine, are you asking, should there be a clause in the new ordinance saying that if you already have a 5 or 6 or 4, 5 or 6 foot fence, that you can't just add another foot to the top of it?
Oh, yes, because people will say, the ordinance says 7 feet, so I can add what I want. And it's not going to be a very aesthetically pleasing fence.
Is that something that could be put in the ordinance, like something saying they can't increase the height of their fence without either getting another permit or getting some approval, or?
Yeah, I've never seen it. I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's a lot cleaner just to say this is how
17.
high your fence can be.
Yeah.
And if you want to,
Well, and 7 feet is high. I mean, do we want to go that high, or do we want to leave it at 6 feet? That's up to you guys to make that recommendation.
My opinion is leave it at 6 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it
There's no
should be
real-
left at 6 feet.
That's fine. Yeah.
okay, any other topics?
Well, let's see here. Well, aren't we dealing with side yards, the traffic triangles? And
The traffic triangles are already in place and cannot be changed.
no, I know that, but what setback from the public right-of-way should the fence maintain? The draft material suggests 10 feet, and that's great. Is that what we're going to decide on?
But we can't change the corner. Line of sight.
No, but here, I'm looking at,
New proposed language, yeah.
they're asking us, what setback from the public right-of-way should the fence maintain? The draft material suggests 10 feet, reduced from the current 25 feet. And that's what we want to do, isn't it?
I assume that's what you want to do, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that just makes good sense. And this is where I came up with, should the rear yard fence be kept at 6 feet or increased to 7 feet? And that's, was the amendment could be made if we preferred by the planning commission, but we've decided, but it says rear yard, it doesn't say side yard. I mean, it specifically says rear yard, but we just made the statement that we are going to keep the fences at 6 feet. Okay.
Very good.
And the rear building line or the behind the building line of the home or behind the front building line of the home? Well, I've seen both, where the side fences start at the front of the building and where it starts at the back of the building. So which are we going to,
The ordinance references the, behind the rear building line of the principal structure.
but next door to me, it's the front. I mean, their fence on the property line, 6-foot fence starts at the front.
I think the intent is to allow a 6-foot-high privacy fence for like the usable area of the rear yard, that area is, there's screening and it's made a private space, rather than, the side yards are typically narrow, and I think the idea is to enclose the rear.
Well, right, and that's the side yard on public.
Yeah,
Abutting the
case
public
where,
right away.
Yeah, you have a side yard which happens to abut the backyard of your home.
Right, but just on a grid system where you have, house here, house here, house here. Now you're going to have a 6-foot-high fence on the side yard. Does that 6-foot side fence start at the front of the house or the rear of the house?
Well, the amendment suggests that it be located in the rear, behind the rear building line.
Yeah,
Start at
that's
that.
probably what it should be, but that's not always what it is, but
No, and we can't go backwards.
No.
This is from here today forward.
forward,
Existing fences are existing fences.
yeah, I know. Grandfathers.
Okay, any other? Okay, I'd look for a motion then.
Well, let's look at the, is this
For-
ordinance as we want it?
17.
So you're going to allow maintenance-free fences to be on the property line?
Yes,
Correct.
A solid vinyl-coated privacy fence,
it's maintenance-free, yeah.
and is located entirely upon the property of the fence permit applicant, verified by a certificate of survey.
Yep.
Okay, now, this is just a question on property line fences that are in existence. Say I have a property line fence that, and I talked to you about this before, that's on the property line, it's there today. And now the neighbor knows that he can put a privacy fence up to the property line. So I'm gonna have a fence on the property line, and he's gonna have a fence on the property line? Or how are you going to deal with that if somebody has two different design ideas?
We already have people that have like a chain link right next to a wooden fence, it's just
So
how they,
it's their property, it's on their property line? They
yep,
can-
and they're told that they just have to maintain the space in between it, if there's any, and then,
Well, how can you maintain a wood fence when there's a chain line link fence on the other
That's
side?
hence the 2 feet.
yeah. There should be a space in between, otherwise, if it's a chain link fence, you can sort of weed whip that, but,
That's a vinyl fence, you'd have a vinyl fence
Yep.
then, and then a chain link fence. If somebody wanted to put up a fence abutting an existing fence, they can do that.
they can. A lot of times, people will work together with their neighbors or try and figure out how to meet their fence lines, make it work together.
Yeah, but we have high turnover here. I mean, people aren't here for a lifetime, a lot of them.
Yep.
It's first-time buyers, and they're
It'll probably have to be up to the discretion of the property owners, staff, the inspector.
well, I'm just trying to make it as
Clear.
less conflicting.
Well, and typically what happens if you have two property owners that are next to each other that want to be right on the fence line, right on the property line, is that one that splits, they'll just use that together.
Yep.
So,
We'll use the
let's
one
just say we got a chain link
side
over
yard
here,
fence.
so it'll go chain link here, and you say wooden fence here, maybe wooden fence goes in first. He'll put the chain link to butt up right in that front part of the rear,
In the corner there.
in that corner. He won't put it along that line, that's already an existing fence. So they basically
Yeah,
agree
so-
to share that wooden fence at that point.
A lot of people have done that.
But if that wood fence had been up there for several years, how is he going to share that fence? That property line fence that was paid for by the property owner that installed it. I mean, I know things are easy on new construction and when you're putting up new fences, but when you have existing fences scattered throughout the neighborhood, and somebody wants to fence their yard now up against another property that already has fencing, you don't need permission from that neighbor to put your fence up anymore.
I think some of these might be like private property matters, where it's discussed amongst the abutting property owners and they come to their own solution and the city isn't involved.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's
There's 4 or 5 of them along my block that go from chain link to wooden to chain link. You know, the guy that put up the wood one in the middle, he spent the most money because the other 2 only have to do 2 sides of chain link.
yeah, okay. No, I understand all that. It's just that
And if the fence is 2 feet off, well, then there's gonna be an alleyway through, and whoever doesn't have the maintenance-free fence has to maintain that. Because that's his property.
I understand that. I don't agree with that, but that's, I think fences should be on the property line, period, no matter what they are. But that's my view. I mean, a little alleyway,
24 inches is big enough to get a,
A regular lawnmower through it.
yeah. And then on the backside of that, this guy wants chain link, he can't afford wood or cedar or whatever. This guy wants cedar, then what do?
well,
That's the other side of that.
I have a fence that needs to be maintenance. Do you mind if I maintain my fence? Well, no. I don't mind at all. Go ahead. I mean, that would be the sensible approach as far as I'm concerned.
But that doesn't work all the time.
Instead of a 2-foot alley between 2 fences.
Anyways, we can go back and forth. What I'd be looking for is a motion.
To what? Send it to council?
Yep, send it or not send it.
I move that we forward this to the full board to have the city review it and accept it
Accept the ordinance?
with our endorsement for accepting as written.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. I vote yes. Sylvia?
Yeah.
I'll vote
Catherine?
yes.
Roger?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes 4-0 to pass it on with full approval to council.
Great.
Moving on to any old business? We just cover, I think, everything for the last 3 months.
Yep.
And new business, Mr. Kermis has some news for us.
Well, just that the preliminary plat for the Creekside Hollow has been received, the added application has been received, and the planning commission will consider that in August.
I can't hear you. I don't know.
The preliminary plat application has come in for Creekside Hollow, which is just south of Cole Avenue out in Forest Creek. It's a application. I can't remember how many homes exactly are in there. I have to take another look at it, because
I think it was 80.
yeah, because they weren't done the last time we talked about it, so, but that'll be coming in a public hearing at the August 10th meeting.
Okay, so our next meeting,
Public hearing then?
It'll be a public hearing for that preliminary concept, that preliminary plan for them.
okay. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 10th, 2022, at the Community Center here in Montrose at 7 PM, which will also be a public hearing covering what the preliminary plat for, what was the name of it again? I'm sorry.
Creekside Hollow.
Creekside Hollow.
Creekside Hollow.
Yep.
And where is it located?
It is located just south of the Forest Creek addition that is up off of Clementa.
So it'd be.
So it will actually connect on 7th Street North, and then that'll connect to Cole and Forest Creek.
Okay.
Is that the LGI?
It is not LGI. Nope, this is a different one.
A different one?
It's kind of right next to that one, though.
Okay.
It's to the west of that one.
Okay.
How many acres are in that?
I'd have to look. I'll have to get back to you.
We'll get the specs
Yeah.
in the next packet.
I'm not sure exactly how many.
I haven't.
I'm not good with acreage. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at it. I'll give you a call. Let you know.
I got a question. You know where the laundromat was going in? Do you know that there's a clothing store down there?
Yep.
Somebody was picketing it too.
Oh. I wonder why.
What?
Picketing it.
Wonder why, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you,
Well, I don't know
went
why.
in there to see what it was, right?
It's
I'll never go back.
Isn't it a thrifty men's store?
It's, yeah, I believe it's like a exchange type store. Yeah.
I know
Okay,
I'll never
good.
go back. He followed me right out to the car, practically.
Oh.
I don't
Okay.
need somebody like that.
All right, to get back on track, is there anything else anyone would like to add? I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. I close the meeting at 7:44.
All right.
Okay. Where's Sean? Is he not here tonight? or-
Sean.
Sam?
You mean